remote village surrounded by dense forests, there was a family known as the Marlows. This small family consisted of John, the father, Jenny, the mother, and their two children, Daniel and Emily. After years of city life, they decided to move to the countryside to escape the noise and stress. They purchased an old house on the outskirts of the village, sold at an unbelievably low price. From the outside, the house appeared grand, with heavy wooden doors and large windows overlooking the thick woods surrounding it. When they first arrived, they felt an inexplicable strangeness in the air. The atmosphere inside the house was unnaturally cold, even though the sun blazed brightly outside. The air carried an odd mixture of mold and old ashes, as if something had burned there decades ago. They brushed it off, excited to begin their new life in the beautiful house. In the first few days, everything seemed normal. They were busy cleaning the house and arranging furniture. The children played in the expansive garden, while Jenny added her personal touches to the rooms. But subtle, almost imperceptible things started happening. Doors would close on their own, and faint drafts would rustle through the house, even when all the windows were shut. The family dismissed these occurrences as quirks of an old home. One night, as the family prepared for bed, little Emily spoke of the lady. She said she had seen a woman standing by the upstairs window of a room they hadn't dared enter yet. Emily described her as wearing an old-fashioned dress, her eyes vacant and lifeless. Jenny tried to reassure her, insisting it was only a child's imagination, but there was an unsettling honesty in Emily's words. The following evening, as the family sat around the dinner table, they all heard heavy footsteps echoing from upstairs. They froze, staring at the ceiling in silence. John decided to investigate, grabbing a flashlight. As he climbed the stairs, the air grew colder with each step. When he reached the top, everything appeared undisturbed, but the door to the room Emily had mentioned stood ajar. He approached it but felt an invisible force holding him back. Something intangible, yet deeply unnerving. The strange occurrences escalated. Lights flickered erratically, faint whispers echoed in the hallways, and Jenny often felt an unseen presence watching her in the kitchen. Shadows moved in her peripheral vision, and a sense of dread began to envelop the entire family. Things came to a head one night when Daniel awoke to the sound of footsteps approaching his room. Opening his eyes, he saw a tall, shadowy figure standing at his doorway. Paralyzed with fear, he couldn't move or scream. After several agonizing minutes, the figure vanished, leaving behind wet footprints on the wooden floor. The next morning, John and Jenny called the village priest to bless the house. When the priest arrived, he hesitated at the doorway. "This place is not right," he said in a low voice. Reluctantly, he entered and began performing a blessing. As he prayed, a piercing scream erupted from upstairs, a sound so chilling it froze everyone in place. It was unlike any scream they had ever heard, as though it came from the depths of despair. That night, the family couldn't sleep. The sounds of footsteps, whispers, and shifting shadows became relentless. Emily began drawing disturbing pictures of a disfigured woman standing by a window. Daniel withdrew into himself, spending hours staring at a specific corner of his room without explanation. Determined to understand what was happening, John delved into the house's history. He discovered that it once belonged to a wealthy family in the 19th century who mysteriously vanished without a trace. Locals whispered about dark rituals conducted in the house and the restless spirits that lingered there, but these tales were dismissed as folklore. One night, as the family gathered in the living room, the power abruptly went out, plunging the house into darkness. Whispers filled the air, along with the sound of faint sobbing. Furniture began to shift. Chairs overturned violently. John grabbed his family, trying to flee, but the front door wouldn't budge, as though an invisible force held it shut. The sounds grew louder, the house itself seeming to shake. Suddenly, the woman Emily had described appeared at the staircase. Her hollow eyes bore into them as she raised a hand and pointed at John. Then, just as abruptly, she vanished into the shadows. In that instant, the door swung open violently, and the family fled into the night. They left everything behind, taking only the clothes on their backs. They never returned to the house, and no one dared move in afterward. The house remains abandoned, surrounded by the encroaching forest, as though the trees themselves wish to shield it from the world. Locals say that if you pass by the house at night, you can still hear whispers, faint sobbing, and the feeling of unseen eyes watching you from the darkened windows. But the story doesn't end there. Years later, old drawings and artifacts were discovered inside the house, depicting rituals and invocations meant to summon spirits from other realms. It is said that one of these spirits never left. The house stands as a silent witness to untold horrors, its dark secrets buried beneath layers of time and fear.